What's going on, and welcome to another edition of the Athlete's Wisdom Podcast. We're here. We not only help you build your business and your brand, but we also give you the tips on how to grow your wealth beyond the game. Now, today I have an amazing guest. This is Suzy Pittman. She is a real estate agent who has helped over 50 athletes, yes, 50 athletes be able to get into their dream home and their dream property and just get them into the real estate game in general. So if you haven't already, like I always tell you, make sure you grab a pen and a paper because note takers are game changers and note takers are money makers, and you must pay attention to the information that she's going to provide to you today. How are you doing today, Suzy?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast today. I know I've been trying to get you on for a while, so I'm glad I'm able to finally get you on here. So before we really delve into, all the gems that you're going to be providing, can you just kind of give a background about who Suzy Pittman is and, how you, kind of got started on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Suzy Pittman, as you said, and I'm the owner of Texas Made Realty. As of a couple days ago, we are now powered by the #1 real estate brokerage in the nation, Compass. And we also belong to a huge network called Nexus Sports Relocation. So we have the top agents in each city that only specialize in sports or that mainly specialize in sports and entertainment. I'm also the Women of the NFL preferred realtor in Houston. And I used to be married to a professional athlete. And that's kind of how my journey started, is actually experiencing the life of an NFL wife and really knowing a lot of the things that just a lot of people don't really realize about, moving around and just kind of what that life is like. So when I got into real estate, my real estate journey started about 13 years ago. And
because oftentimes people, they stay on campus or they stay in like the student housings or the housings that's for students, and it ends up being some ridiculous monthly price that always goes up each time. So maybe they started, I live in Atlanta, right? So I'm going to go based on Atlanta prices. And I remember one of my friends, she stayed at a place called 112. It wasn't like official student housing, but it was like housing for the students that was on campus. And I think she maybe started off at $1,500-$1,600 a month, not including utilities. And by the time she left, I think she was paying close to $2,000, right? But then when we hear people who end up getting, properties, their mortgage is essentially more oftentimes lower than what they'll be paying as, as an apartment. So it's just crazy that, hearing it from you just kind of gave that final checklist as you'd rather get something early on, especially if you're at school, because you can live in one room and then rent it out to, your college friends, and they're paying for everything. And you're making money for them just living there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that also helps you get a little bit extra money if something goes wrong with the house, if you have to fix the AC or have to fix the roof or whatever it is, you have that kind of, you're growing that little nest egg to be able to use it towards those things. Because owning a house is not just about like, oh yeah, look, I'm making all this money and I'm going to spend it on clothes. You also have to put that away and make sure that you've got it to like, okay, when these people move out, I also need to paint the place. I need to make it look good for the next tenant.
Exactly.
So those are all the kind of things you have taking into consideration.
I like that. And I want to revert back to something you were saying earlier when it all starts with credit, right? So, and oftentimes, college students in general, they, like you said, there's people on campus. It's like, oh, get this credit card and it gives you this limit. In their mind, they're like, free money. And they obviously more oftentimes abuse it rather than utilize it the proper way. But what are some specific challenges besides, say, the credit aspect or the financial aspect that college athletes or athletes face when it comes to, managing their finances and getting, their foot in the door when it comes to real estate? And what tips could you give them to kind of overcome these challenges as well?
What I see mainly is if they haven't ruined their credit score by this point in time, like by the time I start talking to them, okay? And so sometimes we have to kind of repair credit first, but if not, I do see a lot of college athletes and professional athletes spending their money on the wrong things, especially with social media. I think everyone's trying to impress people, one up each other, like, look what I have, whether it's a fancy car or fancy clothes, like all the brand name stuff. I think, kids have to be really, or just individuals in general have to be really careful with that, especially athletes, because I think they go into the locker room and they see that someone has, those brand new pair of shoes or that brand new car. My grandfather was a multimillionaire and he drove around in an Astro van with all the seats in the back were out. He had like wood planks down for filtration equipment. You would have never known he was a multimillionaire.
Exactly.
And that's really like, And if even you see me on the street, like I don't wear a lot of brand names. I'm looking at like, I'm trying to pay for my children's college. I'm trying to like save up money for their, hopefully we'll go to a private high school. I'm trying to save up money for all those things. So yeah, maybe I don't drive like the fanciest car or the fanciest clothes I don't have on, but what is like true wealth? You know what I mean? Is, are you putting money away, or do you have a financial planner? Do you have some money invested in stocks, or just have your portfolio diversified so that, one day you look and all of a sudden you're like, dang, I have $100,000. I have $300,000. I have $1 million versus like, dang, I spent, $5,000 on a handbag. And where's that money now? I never made it grow so that then I could buy those luxury items. So I think that's where I think the most mistakes made with, especially with athletes, is that they want to show everyone what they have, but yet what do they really have? You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, just because, when the paychecks aren't coming in anymore, whether it's, agreements that they have during college or even as a professional athlete, because I believe according to the NCAA, less than 2% actually go on to go into professional sports. So what do you have to show for yourself in the long run? And so I would say that would be like the biggest mistake I think people make, is trying to impress everybody else versus like, just maybe being a little bit more frugal and making some just wiser decisions with their finances.
And I agree, because I saw that same statistic, and then I saw one as well, that just between NFL and NBA players, on average, 3 to 5 years after retirement, they're broke, like possibly filing for bankruptcy, or, you always hear about, dang, y'all saw that athlete, working at a fast food restaurant or whatever the case is, right? And that goes to show that a number of things could have obviously happened, but it really just comes down from lack of financial literacy knowledge and utilizing your money the right way. And correct me if I'm wrong, I always hear, the more I learn about financial literacy, the more it makes me want to study it. And what I've heard every billionaire say is a large part of their wealth comes from real estate and owning land, right? Yes, it's also absolutely. A big tax benefit as well. And I'm not super big on taxes. So people that are watching, please don't well, Alex said, no, all I said is it's a tax advantage. I'm not, but I heard that, real estate, it's a very multifaceted, asset to have. So could you just kind of go into why real estate is beneficial to add to your portfolio in any way, even if you're not even trying to get, passive income from it, just for your own portfolio? Why is having real estate beneficial?
Well, if you think about it, like before COVID, for example, there was a lot of people that invested in real estate. And I mean, just in some of my clients alone, within 2 years, some of them have their houses now worth $200,000 more. I mean, this is just I'm just looking at a very small neighborhood in Houston that it just happened to be, but they bought a new construction house. 2 years later, it's now worth $500,000. They paid $300,000 for it. Oh, wow. And now they have a house that's worth $500,000. And so when they go to sell that, they're going to be able to take that money, or you can even take out a HELOC loan within that, use that money to put a down payment on the next house, and then rent the house that you currently have, and then create passive income. But I always do believe in diversifying, but I do believe that real estate is one of the best ways to really invest your money. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, that was obviously COVID really helped to kind of accelerate those numbers, but it's still possible. Like, I mean, whether it's, growing within, $30,000 in a year. I mean, you're still gaining equity in your house. And I just think it's just so important. I always tell people, honestly, the best time to buy real estate was yesterday, because either the interest rates were really good yesterday, or maybe that house was priced a little bit better yesterday. But you know what? You can still buy today. And, the economy is going to go through its ebbs and flows. But at the end of it, if you hold on to it, then you're going to have something to show for yourself, and you'll be able to do something with that. So it's something you can pass on to your kids. It's something that you can, again, have as passive income, or you can even decide just to sell it later, whatever it is, but at least you have options. Exactly. And you're not throwing away your money to a landlord who's kind of making money on you.
Exactly. And they can increase the price whenever. And
Yeah, exactly.
I recently learned about this, but if you said a major gem that I just kind of want to revisit because I want people to kind of take note of it, the HELOC. That in itself is a major like gem and hack right there. So if you aren't familiar with what the HELOC is, just go ahead and like just do your due diligence on looking that up, because that is another way to, essentially take the equity in your home and make it make more money.
Yep.
So as college athletes often, have limited time due to their overloaded and rigorous schedule. How can they navigate through this real estate market efficiently and effectively and make informed decisions, especially if can you kind of go into a bit of the investment side of real estate? And let's just say there is a client you have, an athlete you have, whether college or professional, and they want that multi-million-dollar house, but they're obviously not at that level to sustain it. How could you go about building a plan for them to show them how they can eventually get to that point?
Well, so kind of going back to like the financial advisors, having a financial advisor you can trust, having a mentor that has been successful in their life, having a realtor you can trust, having an accountant that you can trust, all those type of people in your life. Because that's another thing, is a lot of athletes have to pay, especially professional athletes have to pay taxes in every single state that they make an income with. And the same thing with the college athletes now with NIL, they have to make sure that they're paying taxes in all the different states where they're receiving income from. But so once you have kind of your team or your tribe kind of set up, then, we can kind of come up with a plan. So usually it's a collaborative effort. It's not just me alone. I usually we have a conference call. Sometimes it'll, like, a lot of athletes include, if like their moms or dads or whoever are pretty business savvy, like they'll be on the phone. We'll have the financial advisor on the phone. We'll all get on the phone together and say, okay, let's come up with a plan. How about we start here at this price point? And then the long-term plan is that, you're then going to see where the market's at in 5 years. You could take a HELOC loan, take that, put it as a down payment on another house. And then from there, let's see, where you're at. That's covering that. Let's make sure that you have the amount of money that you're going to need to pay that payment. You're going to rent out this house. And that's just like one example. Or kind of like the rental example I gave before, depending on if it's a single player that, they're young and they don't mind having roommates, like, doing subleases. Or I know some athletes want to do like Airbnbs, but that is a lot of work and kind of a full-time job in itself. So we try to navigate like all the things that they're wanting to do and find out, okay, is this realistic with your lifestyle? Is this realistic with what your goals are? And then we try to kind of
lack a lot of the knowledge of the real estate market.
I think the first thing, honestly, is have someone that you can trust in real estate. I'll be honest. There's a lot of realtors that are like used car salesmen, and you really have to sift through it. So I really recommend that athletes and just individuals in general, that you interview your realtor options, get recommendations from people that have made good real estate investments in the past. Maybe they have someone that they can trust. We're also part of the Nexus Sports Relocation Network, which again, some of the top brokerages and top agents in the country are part of this. And there's usually just a couple of people that they've vetted and chosen throughout this network, and you can go through them. Now my brokerage Compass also has sports and relocation experts that they have in each city. So again, try to surround yourself with people you can trust. A lot of my business comes through referral. So I might have someone that I've worked with and then they'll send me to someone else, and just that's typically about over 90% of my business is through referral. So, an athlete will have a good experience with me and then they'll, tell their family, their friends. And that's usually the best way because, okay, look, I've had a good experience with this person. You can trust this person. But one really hard thing that I think I've noticed just over the years is almost every athlete I know, not every one of them, but a lot of them sometimes make the mistakes of trusting the wrong people. So you just really have to be careful with that, because there are a lot of people that will look at an athlete and they're just seeing dollar signs. Exactly. And that's just not the way that, like, I, for example, go about my business. I guess I'm the one that's, you could say, is almost like a Debbie Downer in their eyes, because I'm like, look, maybe don't go for the multi-million-dollar property. Maybe start with like this price point. And we really try to work with their financial advisors to get advice on, okay, what's the price point you really should be at? Because a lot of these athletes, they're not going to make this paycheck for the rest of their life. And so you really need to buy something smart, because after it's all over, you still have to pay taxes on this property. You still have to pay the mortgage on this property, even when you're not making that paycheck. So it's really important, to make those decisions with someone that's not just trying to make the commission on a multi-million-dollar sale, but that's someone that's really looking out for your interests in the long run. Even if it means they only sell a $300,000 house, that's okay.
I like that. And I'm glad you touched on, essentially staying within your means, right? That doesn't mean you have to, go lower than your dreams, right? It just means that you're not at that stepping stone yet.
Tailor that to, still accomplishing the goals that they want without reducing their quality of life or causing stresses that are going to get in the way of what they're really doing or what's really making them money, which is maybe they're, playing for their team. So I definitely believe it's definitely a collaborative effort, and, trying to get especially a lot of these athletes from just leasing, and if their tribe says, yeah, this is a good business decision, I think just even that first step in home ownership is just really smart.
I like that. And you kind of touched on it within that answer on the next question that I wanted to ask you, but it's basically, are there any specific type of real estate investments that would be most beneficial to a college athlete right now? And I know you said one as far as the subleasing aspect, but are there any other real estate investment avenues that a college athlete could possibly take? Because more oftentimes than not, the college athlete will probably have a little bit less capital than obviously a professional athlete who's getting paid, millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what type of investment opportunities would be best for a college athlete currently?
I think it really depends on each person. And I hate to really give you a vague answer, but I think it just really depends on that particular player, their particular financial situation, and kind of helping them, whether it's, hey, maybe don't go for that fancy lease right now. Maybe choose something that's a little bit more humble, or, hey, get a roommate. Maybe that's the first step in their real estate journey, that they're sharing the cost with someone. And then, hey, you know what, next year we're going to try to find a place where they'll let you sublease, or, hey, the next year we're going to try. So we kind of maybe do some stepping stones as far as like, maybe it's not just as simple as like, well, because you have to also be careful with buying. I mean, taxes can increase. It's not just like, oh, I bought a house and now my payment's only going to be $1,800 for the rest of my life. No, that's not the case. Taxes increase, insurance increases. There's a lot of things. So I think it just kind of depends on where that particular athlete is at. And then we can kind of guide them on, like, let's come up with a 3-year plan. Let's come up with a way to kind of get you to that home ownership. Where's your credit score at? So typically the college athletes I work with, a lot of them don't have, a lot of money saved up. And so, but again, we just start with those conversations of like, what are just some ways that maybe you can make a little bit of money, but they do need to be careful and make sure that they check with their institution and make sure that they're not crossing any lines, or if they are on financial aid, that's not going to affect the scholarships or anything they have. So, those are all kind of conversations that are really tailor made to each individual. And so I think that I'm trying to like not give you such a vague answer, but
it was still a very good answer, and it prompted me to ask you this, right? Obviously, you said it depends on where that athlete is currently. So what are some of the factors that go into play when somebody is purchasing, a home? Like, I know they look at the credit. So like, what does their credit need to look like? And what are some of the other factors that go into, what a bank or a lender is looking for, or even a real estate agent is looking for when trying to help somebody find a home?
Yeah. So there's a lot of programs that can help, first-time home buyers, but, are they making any income? If they're not making any income, then it's about what they already have. So that's where we definitely involve a lender into the conversation to really, because lending programs are always changing at all times. And I don't try to be an expert in all fields. I'm definitely an expert at real estate, but so usually I'll include a lender in this conversation. And they'll take a really close look at, hey, what's their credit score? What's their debt to income ratio? All those kind of things. If they're not making income yet, then, does one of their family members, like maybe their mom or dad, if they're, have a pretty good job, maybe they're wanting to co-sign on a property. It just depends on the situation once again. So, but typically, again, it's a collaborative effort, and we just want to first find out where they're at, and then we can kind of guide them on what's a good next step for them.
I like it. I like it. So, can you share any success stories or any case studies of, a college athlete or professional athlete being able to not only, of course, acquire real estate, but then use it to their advantage as far as, whether that's purchasing another property, making an investment property, or anything of that nature?
So I have quite a few NDAs signed for a lot of my clients, but I will say that, like, I have one client, for example, he's actually Super Bowl champion, and he already owned a property. He obviously had to move now that he was with a new team, and so he wanted to rent out his property. It was already furnished, and with furnished properties, you can make actually a lot more money. So what typically would, let's say, rent for like $2,800, we could get a rent of like $5,000 or $6,000 a month, just because it had a TV and sofa and beds and all
Because
that kind of stuff.
it kind of, they don't have to spend all that money to essentially furnish it. And that can be who knows how much depending on the size of the property.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great way to maybe not necessarily get into like the Airbnb market before you're ready, but still you can do short-term leases or even long-term furnished leases, but you can definitely get quite a bit more money per month just doing that. So that's been like one way that I've been able to help some athletes. I have another athlete that they own a property in their hometown, but they were seeing that every single time they were trying to rent a property during the season, the landlords were just jacking up the rates super high. So again, we chose a modest home. You would never like really guess that a professional athlete necessarily would live there, but we worked with their team. We looked at something that made sense, that made it a reasonable mortgage amount. And now they have a house that's there, year round. If they choose to, they can even do short-term rentals while they're away so that they have someone kind of in the property and you can rent it out during the times that you're going to be away. So there's just a lot of options for, and then of course we have just athletes that once they're out of that city, they just want to sell. But, if there's ever a time where I feel like, it's just not the right time to sell, I always try to educate them on their options. Or really at every time I always say, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to rent it out? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to see all the options? So we usually try to like go through all their options and then let them make an educated decision on how they want to handle it.
Okay. So what would be some key factors that a college athlete should pay attention to or consider, when selecting a real estate agent or when selecting any type of financial advisor or investment advisor to work with?
I mean, look at their reviews, meet them. Like I definitely recommend, referrals. What is this? I know that a lot of athletes can get a little blinded by, oh, wow, this realtor just drove up in this kind of car. But, at the end of the day, you want someone that's going to go to bat for you and that's just not in it, like what's in it for them. You really want someone that even when, there's nothing in it for them, that they're still there willing to help you. And I think that's the key. I mean, I think for me, just in my own personal experience, that's what prompted me to get my real estate license to begin with. We had gone directly to a listing agent. I didn't realize that, if you think about it, if the listing agent represents both the seller and the buyer, that's pretty hard to do. So that's why they're supposed to be neutral on both sides, but it's just super hard to do that. So I always recommend have your own representation, whether you're the buyer or the seller, try not to, even a builder, the builder's going to look out for the builder, have a realtor on your side looking out for you, at least pointing out what some of the pitfalls might be, So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see, whether they're athletes or just home buyers in general, is they feel like, well, if I go directly to this agent, then it's going to, save me money somehow. It doesn't.
Okay. So in the context of NIL, how could a college athlete leverage their personal brand, right? Because NIL stands for name, image, and likeness, is about that person's personal brand. How can they leverage that personal brand and popularity to, say, attract real estate deals or, investment opportunities or maybe even partnerships, with certain companies or brands?
So obviously, what I see a lot of athletes doing is partnering with different brands, whether it's a clothing brand or, some particular product. I haven't seen that much of athletes partnering with housing brands just yet. Maybe that's out there and I just don't know about it. I know I've seen a couple professional athletes that have partnered with a home builder. I have seen that. But as far as in college with NIL, again, just be careful, because once you're in that public eye, you're going to get approached by tons of people wanting to have your, your name or your face on their brand, but,
Mm-hmm.
just try to make educated decisions and try not to jump into anything because, that's also your reputation and you don't want to just represent anybody. So I think, I would say that would be my first bit of recommendation on that. But also just be really careful that you're not stepping on any rules or regulations that could affect you. So like make sure you keep in communication with the school before you sign an agreement. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure that the school approves it, or just make sure you're not messing up anything that you already have. Like maybe you have a financial scholarship, maybe you didn't have a full ride sports scholarship, maybe you have some other assistance in place. Make sure that by you all of a sudden signing a $200,000 deal that you're not now getting rid of something else that was benefiting you. And just make sure with your financial people, with the people that you trust, that this deal will now, does that make sense for you to sign this deal? And that'll take care of the expenses that were already being taken care of by someone else. So
I like that. I like that. So that was perfect transition into what are some common mistakes and pitfalls that professional and or college athletes should avoid when venturing into the real estate market, especially because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a up and down real estate market in a sense since COVID. So I know that some things aren't as averaged out as they were beforehand. So what are some things that they should probably avoid mistake-wise in real estate?
Well, first, if you have a financial advisor, don't give them power of attorney to sign things on your behalf. If you do, make sure that it's maybe like on a specific thing, but just be really careful with that. I'm seeing a lot of athletes give power of attorney, like complete power of attorney to their financial advisors. I
Mm-hmm.
also see a lot of athletes allow their financial advisors to pay bills for them. Like you may not always have the ability to have someone doing all this stuff for you. Like I know adulting is hard, but it really is so important. I've heard nightmare stories of like their financial advisor not paying their insurance bill or something, and all of a sudden something
Mm-hmm.
happened to their house and oops, sorry, like it's not covered. Like be responsible for the things that are your responsibility. And yes, get the guidance from those people that you need guidance from, but also once you get that guidance, have some responsibility for the things that you need to be responsible for, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your credit. It's going to affect your livelihood. It could affect a property because you had it in someone else's hands. And I'm not saying that you can't delegate, but I think people need, especially athletes, they need to learn how to do it on their own first. And then, they can, if they get to that place, and maybe have some people helping them with certain things. But I think that's the biggest mistake that I see is athletes kind of giving the power to all these other people. And then I've just seen so many mistakes made with that.
So what beginner tool or resource could you refer to them, even if it's YouTube University, but what tool or resource could you refer to them so they can start learning about some of these things now, even if it's just the basics?
I mean, I do see a lot of great things on, like, it's just hard because on Instagram, or I'll see, good things on YouTube, but you really
Mm-hmm.
do need to filter out. Like, so if you do have a trusted advisor or realtor and you see something like, hey, I saw this video on HELOC loans. Like, can you tell me more about this? Or like forward that video to the person you trust and get
Mm-hmm.
their feedback on that. Maybe they're not an expert on it, but maybe they know someone that is, and that they can have you talk to them, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. So you just want to be careful. I mean, that's why I can't tell you that I recommend like one particular place to go to, because I just think there is a lot of stuff that it's not just as simple as like, oh yeah, this is a great place to go to. If you want to look at certain things, like if you want to look at properties, like definitely look at the MLS for that city. Like here in Houston, it's HAR. It's the most accurate MLS listing because
What's
it's the direct
MLS?
one that we use. So it's where like we go to list, any properties, but there's a lot of like lead generation sites like Zillow, Trulia, Redfin. A lot of those are like agents actually pay to have their name show up on there.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times those listings are like 2 weeks behind, and they might already be under contract, but they still show that they're active.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the true MLS for that city will have the most accurate information on what's available on the market.
Okay, that's interesting. So when it comes to an athlete being able to, let's say they actually start the beginning stages of getting a property, right? How can they effectively manage that real estate investment while still, having all these other commitments, whether it's school, whether it's, sports, whether it's their business, whatever the case is?
So it depends. So is this a house that they're living in, or is this a house that they're just like renting out?
Let's just say for both instances.
Okay. Well, I mean, if they're living in the home, then like I have a lot of clients that they'll call me like, hey, do you know a plumber? Hey, do you know a roofer? Or hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is happening in my house. Like, what do you recommend? Or hey, I just got this tax bill. Like, what's up with that? I'll tell them, hey, you need to make sure you can test your taxes every year. So there's a lot of things that like I always tell my clients, just because we signed on the dotted line and closed on that property doesn't mean that my help stops there. Like I definitely encourage all of my clients to continue to call me, to continue to ask questions. Now, if they're, let's say, renting out a property and they're not in that city, then I think it's really important to have someone, on the ground, whether it's a friend or a neighbor or your realtor, someone that at least can go check on the house. I know there's a lot of property management companies, but just be careful with having someone manage your property. A lot of times they're not really going to do, I mean, sometimes they will, but just, I think if it's just one property, try to have someone that you can trust kind of go in, look at it. If not, if you'd rather have that liability on a property management company, just do your due diligence, try to check their reviews, stay on top of them, because again, not all property management companies are the best, but the more that you can be hands-on, the better. But if not, then that's an option too.
And I like that you said that, it doesn't end with you selling them the property, right? It's an ongoing thing where you continue to, check up on them, or they ask you questions for advice or whatever the case is. So do you happen to have any, ongoing support or mentorship that might be open or available for college athletes to, start learning and progressing more in their real estate journey?
Absolutely. I mean, my phone number is posted everywhere. My Instagram is listed here. Like
Mm-hmm.
people reach out to me all the time, and any way that I can be helpful, I am a phone call away or a text message away or whatever it is. And I don't mind helping. I mean, I even have lots of people call me about like, hey, what about, getting my real estate license? Like, what's that like? I mean, I'm always trying to help out people and just trying to give them the good and the bad of it, because, it's not an easy career path. But I do tell a lot of athletes, like, it's not such a bad thing to get your real estate license, at some point in your life, and have that as just an extra way that you can make money. I mean, but yes, I'm always here to be a sounding board and a mentor to anyone that wants it.
I appreciate that. I might take you up on that advice, and I'm not even a college athlete. So, final question, or final two questions before we close out. Are there any emerging trends, or opportunities, that are in the real estate market that maybe a college athlete could take advantage of and explore in this current moment?
So I guess you could say a little bit more on the conservative side. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I know when like Bitcoin came out, to me, I was totally suspect about it. I was like, I just don't get it. I don't know how it works. And so I'm the type of person that, look, I'm not to say that my way is the best way, but I'm the type of person that I kind of like to see, like what's going on out there. Like even when Airbnb, like I know Airbnb has become a huge thing for a lot of people, but
Mm-hmm.
my viewpoint on it is, I know a lot of people that are making tons of money on Airbnb, but it also comes with a lot of work. It's not just, furnishing a house, buying a house and putting it out there. You're also on the customer service side, because if someone has a bad experience with your Airbnb, then they're going to put bad reviews. Like, who do you have as a house cleaner? Who do you have that, that you can trust? Who do you have as someone that's checking up on that? Who's answering questions for the tenants? Like, who's like, if someone needs a restaurant recommendation, so I've always seen that a lot of the really successful Airbnbs are usually managed by the owners themselves, but I also know some that are not. Like some people have great management companies that are doing a great job, but just know, like, you're at the mercy of like the service that is given in that sense. Like, is someone walking to your Airbnb and it's like immaculately clean, or did your cleaning lady not, or cleaning person not feel like doing their job that day, and someone's walking in there and then having a bad experience? So those are all things that people just need to. So yes, I would say that, like, even though Airbnb is not really necessarily a new trend, but it is something that more people are talking about. And even like with HGTV, having so much home flipping and all that, like a lot of people started coming to me in the last 60 years and saying, oh, I want to invest in properties and I want to flip homes. It's not that easy. It's not that easy finding a property, first of all, that you can flip anymore, especially since HGTV started, with all these shows, that everyone felt like they could do it. And not every market is good for that. You also have to see, you can't just go and let's just say you have endless amounts of money. You can't just put endless amounts of money into your renovations. You have to actually stick to a budget, because then you need to be able to rent it out or sell it at a profit. So there's a lot of things that go into all these things that people just feel like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I want to do this. It seems so easy. There's a reason that, not everybody is doing this, or there'd be a lot more. You have to really learn about it, take the time to educate yourself, and then you can try those things out. But I also see, people that have just taken risks that, gosh, I can't think of her name right now, but there's a realtor here in Houston that I'm just so impressed. I watch her Instagram, and she just took she got investments from different people. They developed a couple little duplexes, and then from there, she developed a few more and developed a few more. I mean, so be on the lookout for those people that are, making amazing decisions. And again, run it by those people that you trust and see hey, what do you think about this? Is this a good idea? Or try reaching out to that person, finding out more.
I like that. So I guess the last question would be, what advice would you give a college athlete who's hesitant about getting involved in real estate, or they're unsure about the right time to start investing?
Well, the fact that they're hesitant, I love that, because I think that means that they're open to being educated about it and asking questions. And so I think that's better than someone that thinks they know it all and they're just diving into it without knowing what they're doing. So I think like I've mentioned before, ask the questions, surround yourself with people. I always say, I think it was someone that spoke at my college graduation, said, walk with elephants, surround yourself with people that know more than you do, and so that you can learn from them. I'm all about being the small fish in a big pond. I want to always be learning. If you ever feel like you're an expert at anything, I mean, even though, yes, I do know what I'm doing in real estate, but every day I'm learning something new. Every day there's something that, oh, you know what? I didn't know about this. And that's okay. You just have to always keep learning and keep growing.
I like that. And is there any, final tips or words of wisdom to any of the college athletes out there that you might be able to share?
I mean, just, be frugal, be humble, try not to get wrapped up in, impressing everybody around you. I don't know. I feel like, especially with athletes, again, like I mentioned before, I feel like the one thing that really worries me about the athletes in today's day and age is I even see it in the draft. I see these kids sitting on a throne. They have all this all this bling, all this everything. I mean, I feel like that's really far to fall when things aren't still there, and I just, take every moment and savor it, but also be thinking about, what are you going to do one day when this is all over? Obviously work hard, I know that it's all a mental game too, you can't be thinking about when it's over all the time, but I'm just saying don't just spend as if, not worrying about the future. I get it. You want to have the nice clothes, you want to live the dream, but at the same time, think about your long-term plan. Because at the end of the day, one day, I promise, every athlete has it is over. And then what are you going to do? What I love is that, you have such a great platform after it's all said and done, whether you become a realtor or anything you become, you will always be that person that played for that university, or you will always be that person that played for that team. But that's just going to make your business grow even more, but that's probably the biggest thing that I think worries me, just seeing how athletes are just, they're even in social media, the way they're capturing them, on the way to the game and on the way to this and on the way to that and all their nice clothes. I just think, one day that's not going to be like that. You're not going to be able to spend that money on those type of suits, or unless you really set yourself up for success in the long run.
I love it. And for those who don't already follow you, and I know it's at the bottom of the screen, but can you let them know where, the best form of communication and where they can find you at?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is Suzy Homeseller. My brokerage is Texas Made Realty. So that's the other Instagram I have listed there. And my phone numbers are listed on there. So if anyone wants to call me, text me, you can. My email is available as well. So I'm super easy to reach.
Well, thank you so much, Suzy, for joining. And if you haven't already, just please go ahead and make sure that you follow her, because she does honestly give a lot of good information and shows a lot of what she does. So you're able to see directly from her what the value she's able to provide. And if you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to this YouTube channel in this video, and we'll see you next week. Let's go.